briefly reflect on project one as well with looking at basically the golden thread all the way up to and starting off with project three. Project three, in terms of how much it counts towards your final mark, is the most important project. It's 40% of your final mark. So, guys, very important to consider this. The next few lectures is very important. You'll also have an extra additional recording regarding project three, uh, basically as the NSS or whatever, as a extra support. So that would be useful to you as well. And then otherwise, yeah, let's just start off. Let me know, those of you who were able to look at your project one feedback, if you have any questions on how to progress to project two. If I remember correctly, your project two isn't due too far into the future. Maybe just someone can quickly confirm what the date is. I am opening the pairs now. On my side, I can see that, okay, RPCO, project 2, 8 September. Okay, so it's Monday in a week. So, basically in a week's time, the project 2 is due. So I'm expecting, there we go, 8 September, 8, 8, 8, 8, 8, 8. So I'm expecting emails from you guys regarding the feedback from Introduction to Research, feedback from Project 1, and then into Project 2. To be honest, in general, I thought Project 1 was going to be a bit better. I think there were, unfortunately, quite a few of you didn't review your Introduction to Research assignment at all. And it seems like many of you, for some reason, started an entire new. You, for some reason, started. Sorry, there's a bit of feedback. Just make sure everyone is muted, guys. Started an entire new research project or whatever, which is obviously not ideal. The You could have done that for research practice, but it places you so far behind because you basically wasted 2.5, 3 months worth of effort in the first semester to start an entire new project. So again, it's still up to you, but if I were you and you did start new research, I'd rather say go back to that introduction to research assignment, look at that feedback, and then submit that for project two. And then for project one, you're gonna obviously have to make that changes, but um, I mean, just for example, the one thing that gives it basically away that you also conducted brand new research and didn't look at your research assignment from first semester was your similarity being very low. Now, obviously, if you made a lot of changes to your research assignment for project one, then your similarity would be relatively low, but I would expect that similarity would be relatively high because a lot of the stuff that you um, submit would be similar or the same, similar research topic, etc. But otherwise, if you're still unsure on what you need to do moving forward with project two, please let me know. If you did pass project one and you did start new research, I mean, continue on to project two with your new research, but I think it's still like ideal and advisable to use the feedback from introduction to research assignment. But otherwise, I mean, quite a few of you, even those of you online, are did very well in your research, in your project one, which is good. And more importantly, especially now for project two as well, it is not the same rubric as you had for your research assignment for introduction to research. It's a new rubric. It's a more, if I can put it in quotation marks, a more difficult uh, a rubric. It's more practical, and we expect more of you because it is a second iteration of your research assignment. Thank you, Melina. The acceptable range that we should aim for in terms of the similarity report. No, it's no acceptable range. It's just that, I mean, if someone submitted their project one and their similarity was like 3%, I'm guessing you just submitted a brand new project and you didn't look at your old research. Um, Good evening, Ellen. Nice to see you online as well. So Richard P. Feynman, the first principle is that you must not fool yourself and that you to know that you are the easiest person to fool. I think this is just general life advice, but Richard Feynman was a very, probably the first well-known scientist who lived in the 20th century for his times. There's obviously a lot of scientists from the 20th century that we know now. I mean, even like Oppenheimer, whose entire movie was made from. But at that time, Feynman, while he was alive, he was known for educating physics. And at the first principle part just means that you guys should already understand this being in your third year that first principles thinking or that startup thinking, or there's another word for it where you in business in general, or when you have new ideas or create new ideas or create businesses or even in this case research, and that you should always think from the bottom up in terms of how you want to build a business or how you want to build your research. First principles, for example, would be using your textbook, understanding your textbook, and then applying it with your research. And then obviously for project three, you are going to reference your research. And then on the flip side of that, and you are the easiest person to fool. And sometimes we fool ourselves, sometimes other people fool us, but um, I think it's just what did that you are awake to that thing that you can be fooled and you shouldn't. And you should try not to be fooled, but not to go in any extra detail beyond your research. The learning outcomes for today, we're going to aim at your title, background problem, relevance, questions, objectives, hypothesis, and how the golden thread links to your research paradigm, design, population sampling, data collection method, and data analysis method for project three, i.e. the golden thread, which becomes ever more important as you progress to project two, three, and then finally project four. For example, your title, Analyzing the Effects of Disciplinary Education on Employee Motivation in the Mining Industry. Why is this quantitative? And then the second title, The Experiences of Disciplinary Action on Employees in the Mining Industry. Why is this qualitative? So we can ask the obvious thing about which words in this supposed quantitative title is makes it quantitative. And then what is quantitative? And then again, in this qualitative title, what makes it qualitative? Analyzing, and then experiences for the qualitative. So yes, usually with experiences it's qualitative, usually with analyzing it's quantitative. These are giveaways, but that doesn't necessarily make it quantitative or qualitative. You can look at the experiences of, you can put like a framework or a model or a criteria on experience and then quantitatively analyze it if you want to. But usually with experiences, especially as it is stated here, where you're not comparing one variable to another variable, that also links to qualitative. Whereas when you use the word the effects of, then you're implying that you want to know what is one thing's effect on another thing. So yes, thank you, Ellen. Quantitative is the relationship between two variables. Sorry, that was a good break now. Um, and then, yeah, sorry, I just quickly muted. And then qualitative is you're trying to investigate usually our person or our people or our group of people or our certain demographic or a certain business or people within a business feel about or experience or perceive something. So it's much more to do with um, subjective meaning. How do you subjectively feel, experience, see, perceive, or whatever it might be, a certain phenomena, whereas with quantitative, we're trying to objectively, and you see this in the sampling method as well, analyze or investigate or determine if why there's a relationship between two variables, or if one thing affects another, or there's an impact from one thing to another thing. Just also in general, but I did mention it to quite a few of you. The word explore was used in quite a lot of the qualitative studies, and it's the word explore as a unique connotation, and you can read the research type of exploratory research in your research matters textbook. It means that you're trying to discover something new, a new phenomena that has not been investigated yet. So be very careful again, but for most of you, I believe I did mention that explore might not be the right word to use in your title or in your research question for that matter. And you should try and find another word. But for those of you who did use explore, just make sure that this phenomena that you're trying to explore in quotation marks is something that has not been explored yet in the certain context. So it has to be very new. It has to be um, something that there's really no research on, if you're using the word explore specifically. So just be careful regarding that. You can use it if it obviously relates to your research. So looking back, no, not looking back, just to remind ourselves, our values are accountability, honesty, discipline, and communication. Take account for your research. How do you take account for your research? It is reviewing your research assignment. It is going through the feedback, implementing that feedback, reflecting on the rubric, seeing where you align or you think you align with the rubric. And then if you don't understand something, asking questions either in chat, raising your hand and asking a question, or emailing me. But obviously, the best way is basically to um, use the microphone, raise your hand, and ask the question, even if you think it's a dumb question. Secondly, being honest with yourself and being honest with me as well. Otherwise, I won't be able to assist you. Acting in a disciplined manner, what does that mean? It just means to consistently work and have a time, date and a time that you spend time on your projects 1, 2, especially 3 and 4 as well. And then communication, basically everything I said up to this point, communicating well. Goals. Okay, so 100% attendance obviously not achievable, but it is an ambitious goal. 100% pass rate is achievable if we all commit to joining the lectures or watching the recordings. Just for example, 22 participants is a bit low, but again, thank you for those who are again here every week. It does obviously mean a lot to me, and hopefully it means a lot to you guys as well, because I think it's very valuable if you are able to join live, but otherwise listening to the recording, that's as close as you can get to a live session, and I know some of us are busy. So please email me then afterwards if you have any questions, so that we can aim for that 100% pass rate, which links obviously to our values. And everyone should aim for 75% or higher. See if you can at least get the same mark for your project 1 as your project 2. Otherwise, higher. If you didn't maybe achieve, you didn't even pass, don't worry too much about it. Aim higher for project 2. I already got quite a few emails obviously on project 1 today, but even someone emailed me today that didn't do well, and but they were still motivated and they still aimed to do well in their project 2 and continue to project 3 and 4. So the going back is taking accountability and then trying to do better and acting in a disciplined manner and communicating, if you reflect back to our values, so that you can do well. Review learning units, review your introduction to research assignment. I've to change that module code. Submit all 3 projects and ask questions during the collabs. This is the rubric for project 3. You see semester weighting is 40%. It's 1,800 to 2,200 words. You see it starts off with your research paradigm and design with 10 marks. The section is usually around 2 paragraphs. where the first paragraph introducing the paradigm, linking it to either quantitative or qualitative research, so positivism, quantitative, interpretivism, qualitative. Then you're going to go into the research type, like the one research type that I shared earlier is exploratory research. Exploratory research is almost unique to qualitative research because it's a brand new phenomena and you won't be able to analyze that relationship with a brand new phenomena because you don't know if there is a relationship with this new phenomena with something else, another variable or whatever it might be. Um, then you go on to stating that it's a cross-sectional design, and we'll go through this again in lectures 5 and 6 again. And then it will go on to you'll go on to saying cross-sectional design versus a longitudinal design, but it is cross-sectional. You guys can't do a longitudinal design. And then what is the last important part of this? There's something I'm missing, but I'll tell you guys. I'll remember now. So okay, it is. You must discuss the paradigm, the research type, that's the cross-sectional design, and then if it's deductive or inductive analysis. Most likely than not, more likely than not, it's going to be deductive for most of you. But if you are doing exploratory type of research, it has to be inductive. And this must also align to your title, problem, and research questions. So uh, just for example, quantitative, looking at employee motivation, for example. Positivism, you're looking at objectivity, usually with prediction and or comparisons or correlations. Empirical evidence, not how people feel about a certain discipline. Whereas qualitative research, looking at employee experiences, interpretivism, looking at subjectivity, usually experiences, perceptions, feelings. So you're not comparing or relating it to specific motivation. You're just trying to understand the experiences of employees. And for this first part of project 3, you're trying to look at, um, you reference your textbook. Throughout project 3, guys, you reference your textbook. Just remember that this is the first time. So for projects 1 and 2, you don't reference your textbook at all. For projects 3 and the last few sections for 2 of the 3 sections of project 4 that you add on at the end, you reference your textbook. So again, like all your other subjects, most of your other subjects, you start then with your textbook and then you add in additional credible or academic sources. So, so Dylan, so not all qualitative research is inductive. Most qualitative research is usually deductive research. So deductive versus inductive just means, and we'll go through this in more detail, but deductive means that if you deduce something, you break it into parts, where induction it is in its parts, and I trying to um, am I think I switched it around now. So deductive, you're funneling it, it's in its parts, and you're trying to bring it together into um, like a funnel, where the funnel is wide, you're trying to bring it together, you're trying to link those relationships, you're trying to use different concepts and funnel it down into very specific, narrowed down, um, for example, data collection method with, and how you analyze the data. And on the flip side, you just flip the funnel around. You see this phenomena at the very top. We don't understand it usually with exploratory research, and now you're trying to break it apart. You're trying to see that, okay, this part of this research is this, and this part of, or not research, this part of this phenomena is this, and this part is this, and this part is that. How do you do that? How do you explore this new research? Is you go and talk to or interview, for example, is one way, experts in the field or people that um, understand the phenomena best, and then you ask them about the specific phenomena. Exploratory research would be something like, what is something like new? Maybe something to do with, I wonder if there's research about if artificial intelligence that we currently use, like ChatGPT, etc., is actually um, an artificial intelligence, if there's actually research in that. Because I'm of the belief that artificial intelligence, as we're using it now, is just like a glorified search engine. So I wonder if we can talk to experts and explore what their thoughts are about um how smart AI actually is. Because there is obviously that research surrounding, uh, not research, people saying that they are currently AIs that are sentient, that can think for themselves, actually, not like ChatGPT that can't do that yet. Um, but just to quickly go back to Dylan's question, so not all qualitative research is inductive, but exploratory research is inductive. So if you're saying that your research in your first section of project 3 is exploratory, then you have to say it is inductive. Um, you start off again with, before saying what your type of research is, you're saying if it's pure research or applied research, and none of you can do at this stage pure research. So all of you start off with just making a definition. Applied research is this, and the type of research is exploratory, inductive, descriptive, which can be quantitative or qualitative research, correlational or explanatory, which is uh, quantitative. However, explanatory can be qualitative as well. Um, Predictive research, quantitative, and then pragmatic research is mixed methods type of research, so both quantitative and qualitative, but none of you are doing that. If we go back to what applied research is, applied research addresses specific issues, assesses their needs, and evaluating policies, recommends changes, and identify new research areas. Um, Whereas exploratory research um, is studying the unknown areas to gain insights, formulate problems, hypotheses, and identify key concepts. So this is where I can say with the funnel, it's basically studying something that, if you think about exploration, if you the first person that set their foot on the Antarctica or whatever it might be, they that means they explored, they went where people weren't before, or like sometimes watch videos about these um, caves that people explore on YouTube, and even though um, it actually those enclosed spaces. Actually, I'm fearful of it. I like watching it because I don't know why I like watching it. But they're exploring these caves, and they sometimes they go to spaces where no one has been before. So they're exploring, it's new, and they might go into a small crevice, push themselves through, not knowing that if they are able to turn around and get back. And there's actually been um, quite a few cave deaths where people go into a crevice, crawl, or bear crawl, whatever they do, and then they can't turn around or they can't crawl back or they stuck there or whatever it might be. Yeah, Melina, something like that. How will AI impact critical thinking in the future? Because I think that's something that we should definitely explore. If AI replaces our ability to critically think and evaluate problems, how far is our society actually going to go further, and how reliant are we then going to be on AI if there's going to be a part of our brain that we're not using anymore because this AI is using it for us? Those guys aren't particularly smart. Um, yeah, it's difficult to say if they're smart or not because they're so focus on exploring and doing new things that they think that, okay, if I take on this risk, I'm going to be the person that discovers this new part of the cave and I can name the cave then. And then they won't, some of them aren't able to turn around. If you guys really want to hear some chilling stories, go and Google it, like cave deaths across the world. It's crazy. We even watched a video on YouTube, a car launch video, where they explored I think they're still exploring it, but there's like no content around it, which is crazy. The Armageddon cave somewhere in Gauteng. There's only a handful of people who know where this cave is as well. You guys should go and watch that as well. It's quite different to the other ones where it's very enclosed. This cave is very wide open, large spaces. Um, and they're doing a bit of exploring there the past 15 years or so. So exploratory research, whereas descriptive research, qualitative or quantitative, is specifically describing a certain situation. If you're doing descriptive research, both with quantitative and qualitative research, you have to have research objectives. So yes, you can have with quantitative research objectives, and then it is a descriptive type of research. You're trying to describe a certain phenomena or a relationship of a phenomena if it's a quantitative research. But I don't think any of you are really doing or using on the quantitative side quantitative research objectives for your quantitative question or questions. So most of you doing quantitative research would either do the correlational type of research or maybe explanatory or predictive. So the descriptive part, those of you, I think many of you, if not most of you, doing qualitative research might use the descriptive research type as you're trying to describe a phenomena or trying to describe an experience or perception of people. Whereas the correlational research and explanatory research, the correlational specifically aims at the relationship between two variables or multiple variables, but for in your case, two variables, identifying the positive and or negative correlations using using different like analytical tools. And one of these tools or the tools that you're going to use and explain in your data collection method, the instrument is surveys. Explanatory research, how and why relationships between phenomena exist beyond identifying correlations. So explanatory research is you trying to explain a certain phenomena. So you could explain it qualitatively or quantitatively. You could explain, say that this relationship exists between these two variables through this phenomena or whatever it might be. But not a lot of you would do explanatory research, and then quantitative is predictive, where you're trying to predict a future outcome, to prevent, promote, or anticipate certain outcomes and direct future research despite its challenges. So this can only be quantitatively because you can't subjectively predict something. You can only objectively predict something. There has to be certain criteria met, and saying that, okay, if these criteria are met through quantitative analysis, I can predict that this would occur. This is predictive research is usually more aligned with, for us in BCom, usually more aligned with like economic type of research, as opposed to where many of you look at individuals or people's experiences or the effects that these people might have on a certain phenomena, and so on. And then mixed methods, I'm not going to go into detail with that, but it's a pragmatic type of research where you might want to explore certain phenomena and then identify the relationship or explain the relationship. Yeah, you could. Pure research, none of you are doing pure research. Pure research aims to test theories, develop new methods, and expand on existing knowledge in terms of developing these new theories or developing these new methods of maybe identifying theories or doing research or whatever it might be. It's a very foundational type of research, and this pure research, it's basically if you do pure research, it might be more in the natural sciences, or it's like uh, you're trying to develop new hypotheses that could be tested into the future, um, where you're trying to build this theory or build this conceptual framework. So none of you should, uh, or at this stage of your academic career, say that you're doing pure research. You only do pure research most likely if you're doing a doctorate or if you're doing maybe a master's in the natural science. So what should be included in this section? Your paradigm stating if so either interpretivism or positivism, interpretivism qualitative, positivism quantitative. You have to say it's applied research. You have to state your research type. So for qualitative, it's either exploratory, descriptive, or explanatory. I'm missing one now. Yeah. And then for your quantitative, it's descriptive, correlational, explanatory, or predictive. Um, for most of you, if you're doing quantitative research, it would be the correlational. For most of you, if you're doing qualitative research, it's either going to be descriptive or exploratory. But like I said, quantitative can be descriptive, explanatory, or predictive. And then qualitative can be explanatory as well, if you're trying to explain a certain phenomena as opposed to exploring it or describing it through your interviews for qualitative research in your data collection method. You're going to state it's a cross-sectional design. None of you are doing a longitudinal design. It's not feasible. Um, and then if you continue to your population, your sampling, um, 10 marks and 15 marks. Your population is the theoretically specified aggregation of the elements of the study. The elements, so people or artifacts, so for you guys, it's going to be people from which the sampling unit is selected. Yeah, as well, you're going to state your unit of analysis. Most of you, it would be the individual. So you're going to start off with saying it's the individual, but it might be that you're trying to analyze groups or analyze the organization, but most of you is going to be analyzing the individual. So it's going to be based on your research. And then your population is also going to be split up into your target population and then your accessible population. Your target population is a very, very broad group. So you might say that your target population is entrepreneurs in South Africa, small to medium-sized enterprises in South Africa. And then your accessible population is the area that you reside in or where you have access to this population. So you might say Johannesburg, KwaZulu-Natal, Durban, Port Elizabeth, Cape Town, or whatever it might be. And then your population parameters, you are going to describe these three things: the nature, the size, and the unique characteristics of your population. So meaning that you're going to describe that what is the criteria that fits your population. You're basically overtly and specifically saying through referencing that your population are entrepreneurs that reside within South Africa and then accessibly, if you make it accessible within Johannesburg, um, that have been maybe your criteria would fit an entrepreneur for 5 years, owns a business, or maybe is part of a company, so they're entrepreneur, not an entrepreneur, or whatever it might be. You have to be very specific. It has to be referenced. And how do you reference that? You base it off other people's research as well. So you can go and review the research articles that you've referenced before for projects 1 and 2, those sections, and you can go and see what was their populations. How does my population fit with that? Am I using a similar or maybe even the same population, just maybe not in Cape Town, but in Johannesburg? And then you can use their description of their population for your population. And then your accessible population, a list of people who you would like to contact or a list of objects that you would be analyzing. So for your case, and remember, you guys aren't actually surveying or interviewing people, but you would explain how you would actually do it. Um, you have to state this is the list of people that I have access to in my population. The sample is a subset of that accessible population, which you select to be the respondents or the artifacts in your study, meaning that you can even go and try and find a database with the list of your participants. Even if you go back to the size of your population, you can go maybe onto Statista or Statistics South Africa or go and use another database or maybe you can find a journal article where they specifically say there are so many entrepreneurs, there are so many small, medium-sized enterprises in South Africa and then within Johannesburg. And then which links to your sampling frame, the actual list of people or objects in your population. like a mailing list, a telephone director, or whatever. So it would be advisable for you then for project 3 to find this list of people that you would like to contact. Um, that could be like the specific database, or you'd find the list of people on Facebook Marketplace, or wherever it might be. That's where you guys are going to have to be a bit creative, and do a bit of research on that, or even go and read journal articles and see what they said, where they got their population. Yeah, you reference your textbook first. You explain this is the definition. This is what an accessible population is. You reference your textbook, and then in first sentence, second sentence, the accessible population for this research is blah 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 blah. And then is the unit of analysis assumed from what you mentioned as a location in your title or not? The unit of analysis doesn't specifically link to your location, but it more links to your population, so the people that you want to analyze. So the unit of analysis, the actual thing that you are analyzing. What does that mean? That you want to know about SMEs, so that would be organization. You want to know about entrepreneurs, so that would be individuals. You want to know about groups, so that would be what would be a group? Why am I blanking now? Just a group of individuals that do an activity together or work together or whatever it might be. That's not a specific formalized organization, or may and not individual experiences that you want to analyze. So probability sampling, with probability sampling, those of you doing quantitative research, you have to use this probability sampling in your research. If you're doing qualitative research, you cannot use this. This is aimed at generalizing your findings. With probability sampling, whereas non-probability sampling in unequitable units, it is difficult or impossible to know the entire population, or your entire population is not accessible. So with qualitative research, because you're doing interviews and it's very time constrained, it's not usually feasible to conduct more than 15 interviews, for example, and that you can reference. So, for example, you could say that this journal article conducted interviews with 15 people, and then you can say that that this research will adopt a similar criteria, or when data saturation is met. What does that mean? It means that you've already conducted 10 interviews with your population, and yet you've seen that in the past 3 interviews, you're getting the same answers. You don't believe you're gonna find anything new if you interview more people that fit your population parameters. So you say that data saturation has been met at 10 respondents. Or you can say that, okay, you guys aren't going to say that because they aren't actually conducting an interview. You would say that 15 interviews would be conducted similar to the study, or when data saturation has been met. Probability sampling, you have simple random sampling, systematic sampling, stratified sampling, and cluster sampling. Those of you doing quantitative research and doing probability sampling, just choose simple random sampling. Don't choose any of the three. You can, it's not wrong to choose any of the three, but it's more difficult to explain the other three. Systematic sampling is still fine, but just use simple random sampling and explain how you would implement that. Otherwise, if you can't find an actual database with a list of people you would email your survey to, and remember, you don't actually email a survey, you don't actually collect any data. Then if you're quantitative research, you can use non-probability sampling, but if you're doing qualitative research, you have to use it. And more likely than not, you're going to use purposive sampling if you're doing qualitative or quantitative. And then you can add in stating that the population and the population of the study will be sampled using purposive sampling because certain criteria needs to be met, um, and the population would be purposefully chosen to be part of the study. And you can use something like snowball sampling. So snowball, if you guys can imagine this, if you put a snowball, a small snowball at the very top of a hill with snow on, and you roll it down, the snowball is going to collect more snow, and the snowball is going to get bigger. So how does that work in research? It means that uh, I purposefully chose 5 people to be part of the research. I interview them, and then I ask each of them, is there another person that fits these population parameters that I can interview? Basically, is there another entrepreneur in Johannesburg that is part of the retail sector that I can interview that you know of? That's a form of snowball sampling. It's very popular. And then obviously there's stuff like volunteer sampling, quota sampling, which is basically a step above purposive sampling. But try not to use this one. You can just use purposive sampling, but you can use quota sampling, doesn't matter. Convenience sampling is also very popular, and then accidental sampling. You guys are going to have to go through that in your own time. I'm not going to waste any further time on this. I will go through it briefly again into the future, but or in our next collab lectures, but at this stage, I'm not going to go through it much further. For your data collection method, this is worth 20 marks, might be the most important part of project 3. You have to be very practical, very specific. You have to have multiple credible sources, either way for most of these sections of project 3. It has to be clear, detailed, and practical, meaning that you actually have to reference your textbook, other sources, but also state that how the sampling would actually take place, how the people will be approached, or how the emails will be sent. Maybe you can even include what message will be said. You can state that informed consent will be asked from the participants, and that they can remove themselves from the study at any time, stuff like that, which will also be mentioned in project 3 for your ethical considerations. But you guys can just look at your textbook. They go into quite a lot of detail with the data collection methods. And then your questionnaire, you attach this as an annexure. So this is not with this doesn't count towards your word count. You attach it as an annexure, and this is where you actually try and in quotation marks, answer your research question or questions. It's almost like you're breaking down your research question into questions that you can either ask someone if it's qualitative in an interview, or if it's a survey with close-ended questions, set up a criteria where you can try and answer your research question through these closed-ended questions. 1 or 2 yes no questions, 5 or 6 not multiple choice questions like rating questions or Likert scale question, and then there's like ranking questions as well if you want to do that, but that's all in your textbook as well. So you must be practical. What would you actually do? How will the participants be approached, and how will the questionnaire be distributed? And then what is the research instrument and how will it be applied? This must align with your title, problem, and research questions. Quantitative data collection, probability sampling. It's going to be a relatively large sample, and you have to use the sampling calculator, and you can use this, an online one, if you want to. It requires generalizability through statistical tests, so statistical analysis. You're trying to test an hypothesis and find causal links. You're using a survey as your research instrument to inspect something carefully. That's what survey means. It's a series of questions, close-ended questions, different types of questions for your survey, cross-sectional design. You're going to have many respondents at a single point of time. Whereas qualitative data collection, you can choose a non-probability sampling method, relatively small sample, 10, 15 participants, and reference that. In-depth interviews or focus groups. Most of you are going to do in-depth interviews. Focus groups, you can do that. Focus group is basically you set up a meeting with people within your population, might be 5, 10 or more people, and you have a 2, 3, 4 hour discussion with them. You bounce off questions with them. They might go sometimes into a debate, but you're just trying to find that thread within your questionnaire to answer the question. Or sorry, for your participants to answer the question, but most of you would just say in-depth interview, so one-on-one, face-to-face, in-depth interviews. Aiming at achieving objectives. It's a series of open-ended questions, so no yes/no questions, no um, questions measure like a Likert scale questions where you say strongly agree to strongly disagree. And then at least a textbook reference and an additional credible source there. You'd see that data analysis methods, 15 marks. For quantitative, you're going to say statistical analysis and you're going to state the inferential statistics that you're going to use and maybe descriptive statistics as well. For your qualitative data analysis, most of you doing content analysis, you can use thematic analysis. Content analysis is basically thematic analysis with 2 extra steps. Um, so choose one of these two. You can use discourse analysis, but most of you it's not relevant or doesn't apply to your research. So it's either going to be thematic analysis or content analysis, qualitative content analysis. And again, at least a textbook reference and an additional credible source. And again, I'm going to give you guys time just to read through this quantitative example and this qualitative example. Can I just get a thumbs up from you guys if this makes sense? Otherwise, can I get a what's the surprised face? If it doesn't make sense, and then I want to see the questions in chat or see your hand up to ask questions. Okay, so I have 4 thumbs up now. Okay, I have another thumbs up in chat as well. 2 more thumbs up. Kirsten, you have a question? Yes? Or, oh, okay, well, it's just thumbs up. Okay, no problem. So for example, in a questionnaire, so Anushka, you're obviously not doing any statistical analysis. Thank you for the question. You're just going to state, and you can look at your textbook regarding this, and reference your textbook and add an additional credible source. You're just going to explain maybe the method like regression analysis or whatever it might be. You might be used to statistically analyze the data, and you could say that different types of graphs or yeah, mostly graphs would be used like this type of graph that can represent the relationship between these variables or whatever it might be. Also in the statistical analysis part, especially for the quantitative side, obviously you're going to state that if the specific criteria is met, basically the respondents answer the questionnaire in this way, for example, um, or if this is the finding of the research, then the hypothesis, for example, the alternative hypothesis would be accepted. So H1 would be accepted, and HO or the null hypothesis would be rejected, or vice versa. He explained that these results from the data collection and then analysis of the data would accept this hypothesis and reject this one, or vice versa. And then for your, on the flip side, for your qualitative data analysis, for example, if you use thematic analysis has 6 steps. You can explain each of those steps and how um, themes would be identified through what's the, not keywords. I can't remember the word now, but you're basically trying to find phrases and words and stuff that's popular and that keeps coming up in your in your data, the data that you collected, and you're trying to find themes out of these words and phrases and stuff like that. And these themes um, are basically the broad themes that explain your research. You usually have broad themes or global themes, then you have sub-themes, and these sub-themes come out of the actual keywords and phrases that keep coming up out of your data that you collected through your interviews. So when you conduct an interview, you can obviously take notes in a notebook, but usually you record it, and then with the recording, you create or develop a transcript. These days, AI can do the transcript for you, or computer systems 20 years ago and older, they actually had to type the entire transcript out, which took a lot of time. And you analyze each sentence, each phrase, each paragraph, etc. Yeah. So basically, the results that would cause the hypothesis either being accepted or rejected. And then the themes with qualitative research is you just explain, you basically look at the textbook, you explain each of the steps and then how it would relate to your research. So hopefully all of you read this now. So you basically have one or two short paragraphs is introducing your research, why this research is being conducted, what is the main purpose of this research, introducing the study, by what the questions are about, why the study is important, ask informed consent. So one, two short paragraphs, guys. Because remember, if someone were to participate in the study, they don't want to read in like an entire page or 2 pages of stuff. They just want to see, okay, the study is about this. They want to know this and why the questions are being asked, and that they will be kept anonymous. List the questions clearly. Around 10 questions is fine. Open-ended questions for qualitative, closed-ended questions for quantitative. And then again, just looking at the example, I basically just spoke about it. So again, that for the quantitative side, if you're specifically using probability sampling, you have to calculate. So this is the database. There's 1,000 CEOs using a sampling calculator. How many CEOs do I actually need to survey? How many CEOs basically need to answer my survey for it to be generalizable to the population? And then on the flip side, list of CEOs, Durban purposefully select 5 CEOs to interview, and then you might say, okay, saturation has been met. Usually it's not 5, but usually the minimum is 5. Usually we're aiming for like 8, 10, 12 participants in the study. Ask to answer 10 open-ended questions. Through content analysis, you analyze the data being collected. So the golden thread, the research paradigm and design types and examples, the population sampling method, data collection techniques, and data analysis methods. And that is the reference list. And if you just reflect on project 2 as well, maybe you can do that the last 5 minutes. Just to end off, maybe the last 5 minutes. Does anyone have questions on the feedback on project 1, or trying to complete project 2 for next week Monday? Just in general questions. Maybe some of you want to share their theories, maybe share their um, questions that they might have on the concepts, or questions that they might have on research project 1. Yes, Anushka, I see your hand is up.
Hi, sir. Yes, I just want to ask, so in my title, you underlined the word financial education levels. And in my background, I mentioned the lack of financial literacy skills, and you also underlined that. I'm assuming like one of them needs to change.
Yes, didn't I do a comment either in your rubric or on the paper itself?
You mentioned that I need to adjust the title and then everything else, the questions and the hypotheses. Um, but
Okay.
but I'm not sure how to better align it, if that makes sense.
Okay, no, I think
Because
it
it's
does
all
make sense.
interrelated.
Yeah, that's the thing with even though a lot of this stuff is interrelated and you can still reference it in your um, maybe in your review of previous literature or just mentioned in your background and your research problem. There is a difference between like what is say educational level and then literacy, right?
Yes, like financial education levels and financial literacy skills. But if I do have a source that says that, should I not mention it then?
You can, but just make sure that it is then aligned. So, for example, in your research question, do you use education or financial literacy?
So
Because if you,
I use the
because
word financial education throughout, financial education levels.
I think I
Yeah.
need to read that part of your research again, but there is like a difference between obviously it almost seems like literacy is like a part of financial literacy is a part of financial education. Well, I think financial education is more like a broader term. So if did you mention again in your did you say underline financial literacy in your background?
Yes.
Do you talk about financial education like that general concept in your background? Or do you just
Um,
speak about financial literacy specifically?
I talk about established businesses and then I mention SME resilience. Maybe that's why, because it's the only thing that I mention about financial education
Uh,
is financial literacy
yeah,
skills. So maybe that's the problem.
because like financial literacy, I think might mean something like, and also obviously depends on the conceptualization and what you reference, how you reference it. But financial literacy might just mean that you know maybe how the finances of your business work, and you're able to like maybe just interpret some things about the finances. When education, financial education might mean anything from either a certificate or like a short course done in financial literacy, for example, all the way to have a doctorate in financial accounting or whatever it might be. So financial education is very broad. So if you want to, that's why I also think I underlined it, and I thought I made like a comment on the paper itself, but um, if you can do like financial literacy specifically, and that might even be better, but it all depends on you and your research. But it might be better because now you're specifically focusing on um, if is your population entrepreneurs,
SMME,
SMEs.
yeah, SMME. So my research title is The Impact of Business Owners' Financial Education Levels on SMME Sustainability in the Garden District
Okay,
Municipality.
okay, so basically SMME owners, then if they are financially literate, then you could then focus on that.
But is it fine then if I continue with like the argument that financial education would, there's a problem, there's a lack in that
Yeah, but well, what would happen if you just change financial education to financial literacy?
in my title?
Yeah, and then your research question. Would that change your research in any way?
As I understood, it's like kind of connected because a lot of the research correlates. I think I just overlapped like different studies that focus more on the financial education because if they do receive financial education, they argue that okay, they are
Yeah.
financially literate.
Yeah, and so this goes to all of you. So um, remember, different words have different meanings. So I might be financially literate, but I might have no financial education. So I might have never opened up a financial textbook or whatever, but I might be financially literate, maybe through speaking with people in my family, friends, or the other business owners or whatever, but I might not have any education, where education is more like a formalized thing, um, versus being literate. So even if you look at literate in general, if I understand it correctly, it means that if I am literate in terms of reading, I'm able to read, but I might be able to read without ever going to school. Do you understand what I'm getting at?
Yes, I
So
understand, sir.
so there is a link between it. So obviously, if you have a financial education, I am financially literate, but I don't have to be financial to have a financial education to be financially literate.
That makes
So
sense. My
okay,
my problem
okay,
is just that if I do change that, my theory is the theory of human capital investment. So that means that if
okay,
you increase your education, that means
okay.
you are more competent.
Okay. So maybe then just in your background, your research problem, make that link, direct link with financial literacy and financial education, because there is a
Okay.
difference.
Okay, yeah, it makes sense. It makes sense. Thank you,
Okay.
sir.
Okay. And yeah, for each and every one of you. So um, even before class, Marty, if you don't mind me speaking about it, asked about is a research question adding the word expenditure, digital marketing expenditure, and I underlined it in his research question, said that this didn't really come up in your title, and not much in the rest of your maybe research problem and so on. And now you're adding this extra concept. And even though digital marketing and digital marketing expenditure is linked, it's not necessarily that um, you are actually investigating one or the other. You have to be very specific and very direct in what you are actually researching. Are you doing digital marketing expenditure, or are you just doing the marketing that is being done by, for example, SME owners digitally, how they market digitally? Because there's a difference between, yes, it's connected, but there is a difference. I hope that was useful to you guys. I think for now, to check if we can have more than one. Ellen, you can have more than one theory, but rather not. Just to make it simple, because you don't have a lot of words, focus on one theory, and try and apply that to your research. And even if you have one theory that only half of basically that theory fits with your research, then just state that these parts of the theory fit with your research. So, for example, if you're doing Maslow's hierarchy of needs, you say that the social needs and the self-actualization need fits with this research. The other three needs don't directly fit. So these needs will be used for this research, for example. 10 out of 10 for the theoretical foundation. Last semester would be okay if I copy and paste provided mine. Yeah, so Colleen, just copy and paste that and then just make some improvements based on the feedback that I gave you, and then linking it back to like I said in the start of this lecture, link it to your rubric as well. So if you look, the rubrics are different from semester one to semester two. So explanation, justification is required. Theory is clear and coherent. Integral to this justification of application of the theory is clear and well argued. Multiple credible sources related to the research problem. Explain, paraphrase in your own words. Yeah, don't make too many tweaks. Just make subtle changes to make improvements. Maybe add a academic reference or two. Build on your current discussion. Don't make changes. Just make like slight improvements. Improve your argument. Continue with the application and link towards your research. Yeah, so um, be intentional with the information that you add, basically, Martin. So don't just add in references because you think you're going to get a better mark. How does this academic journal article add to my current argument or my current discussion? Is it relevant? For example, yeah. But yeah, guys, thank you very much for joining the session. Please email me if you have any further questions. And sorry for talking too much. There was less interaction than usual. Next time, I promise I'll make it more interactive and allow you guys to ask more questions and comment more, etc., etc. Oh, and guys, please.